Naruto Reborn Wind Shadow. Attack the Country of Fire in the beginning chapter 11 to 25. Fire Country, on the edge of a vast forest called Yoshino River. As night approached, the Sand Village ninjas arrived here according to Rasa's plan. Looking into the distance, the forest had disappeared, replaced by an endless vast plain. This was where Rasa planned to resist the Leaf Village ninjas for the next 7 days. Because for the Sand Village ninjas, most of them were good at wind release, and the natural cover of the forest would greatly reduce the power of wind release, but a plain like this was different. Alright, we have reached our destination. Sensory ninjas are responsible for monitoring the surroundings, and the others will set up camp, make a fire, cook, and rest well. There will be a tough battle to fight in the next few days. All the ninjas immediately moved. They began to gather materials from the forest on the spot to set up camp. As for food, everyone only brought enough soldier pills to last for 7 days. Because Rasa had decided on a quick attack strategy, everyone did not carry much baggage this time, and the storage scrolls they carried with them were all weapons. Fortunately, this was a forest with many wild animals and no shortage of water. Soon, under the cover of the forest, camps were set up along the Yoshino River forest, and the aroma of food wafted from the camps. In the center of the camp, in the tent representing the Kazekage, Rasa, Yekura, and Mikawa gathered here. In addition, there was also an Enbu ninja named Yura, who was sent by Maki to be at Rasa's disposal. As soon as everyone sat down, Mikawa said, "The Leaf Village ninjas seem to be a little slow to react. Even now, our people have not detected any movement from the Leaf Village ninjas." Rasa's plan naturally took into full account the distance between the two countries and the speed at which both sides were traveling. According to everyone's judgment, the Sand Village's invasion of the Fire Country would definitely not be concealed from the Leaf Village for long. Judging from the speed at which the Leaf Village sent out ninjas after receiving the information, the Leaf Village ninjas should not be too far away when the Sand Village arrived here, but now, they have not received any news. This was indeed a bit puzzling. Rasa glanced at Yura and asked, "Does Enbu have any information?" Yura nodded and said, "Reporting to Lord Kazekage, our intelligence personnel in the Leaf Village have discovered that the Leaf Village is conscripting ninjas, but strangely, when the news came, they did not see a large number of Leaf Village ninjas leaving the Leaf Village." This made everyone in the camp even more puzzled. Rasa also couldn't figure it out, but he understood what his purpose was and said, "Isn't this a good thing for us? Our Sand Village is not here to fight to the death with the Leaf Village this time. The slower they are, the greater our chances of success in the end." This made Yekura and Mikawa nod their heads in excitement. Rasa then continued to ask, "Where are Maki and Elder Ebizo?" Yura replied excitedly, "Just received intelligence that the minister and the elder have dispersed and infiltrated the border of the Fire Country under the cover of night. At the same time, the ninjas we arranged in these 14 cities have also begun to act. Not bad, at least everything is going smoothly so far." After praising, Rasa also looked at Yekura and Mikawa. "This time it concerns the future of our Sand Village. As long as we succeed, we will be able to get rid of the control of the daimyo in a short period of time, and our village will be able to take a big step forward." Yes. The two nodded, rationally not expressing any objections. "Alright, since the people of the Leaf Village have given us time, then let's not waste it. Everyone, go back and rest well and wait for tomorrow's battle." Leaf Village Ninja Village. Under the night, Minato Namikaze hurried back to Konoha, accompanied by his 3 partners, Shibi Aburame, Choza Akamichi, and Kiba Inuzuka. At this time, although Minato Namikaze had already learned the Flying Thunder God technique, he was still unable to achieve the speed of using the Flying Thunder God to travel in the later stages due to his unfamiliarity with the use and the consumption of chakra. In the Hokage building, Hiruzen Sarutobi and the elders simply issued orders to Minato Namikaze. "I understand, Lord Hokage. I will set off now." Hiruzen Sarutobi looked at Minato Namikaze's dusty appearance and asked, "Why don't you take a break, Minato, and go see Kushina and Kakashi?" Minato thought for a while, his eyes flickered slightly, but he still shook his head. "No need, Lord Hokage. Since the Sand Village dares to invade the Fire Country, as a member of the village, I have an obligation to drive them out of the Fire Country." Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed and said, "Alright, thank you for your hard work, Minato. I have also asked someone to contact Jiraiya. He will also go to support you soon. That's great, that way I will be much more confident. After Minato left, he came to the entrance of the village. The ninja responsible for leading the team this time had already been waiting here. It was also Minato's good friend, Choji Akamichi's clansman, Todo Akamichi. It's you, Todo, long time no see. Yes, Minato, and brother Choza, we can finally fight together again. Yes, Minato nodded. Then let's set off. Todo, tell me the specific information on the way. Under Minato's leadership, nearly 500 Leaf Village ninjas left the Leaf Village one after another and attacked in the direction of the Sand Village. In the dark dense forest, Todo Akamichi also told Minato and the others about the Sand Village's information this time. This time the Sand Village's invasion is very strange. Strange. This caused Minato Namikaze and the others to look sideways. That's right, according to the information from our intelligence personnel in the Sand Village's action is very strange. Our people did not see any large-scale mobilization of supplies in the Sand Village. This stunned everyone, because as far as wars are concerned, even ninjas cannot avoid the rule that the army's food and fodder go first. Whether it is food, weapons, or medicine, they are huge consumables on the battlefield. That is to say, the Sand Village does not intend to fight us for too long. This is the strange thing, because although there was no large-scale mobilization of supplies, our people saw that the Sand Village dispatched at least more than 2,000 ninjas this time. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. What? This number shocked everyone. You must know that according to Konoha's understanding of the Sand Village, the total number of ninjas in the Sand Village in recent years is probably this number. There is no mobilization of supplies, but so many ninjas have been dispatched. What exactly is the Sand Village doing? Shibi Aburame, wearing sunglasses, looked thoughtful. This is not the strangest thing. The strangest thing is that, according to the news from our intelligence personnel, the number of Sand Village ninjas currently appearing in our fire country is only more than 300. Now everyone was even more puzzled. Hey, the Sand Village wouldn't be crazy and want to start a war with the Cloud and Rock villages, would they? Kiba Inuzuka, riding a ninja dog, roared incredulously. Minato Namikaze thought for a while and said with a thoughtful expression. If this is the case, then it would be a good thing for our Konoha, but is the Sand Village really that irrational? Of course, no one would think the Sand Village would do such a thing, right? Because even Konoha, during the First Shinobi World War and the Second Shinobi World War, didn't have the courage to attack 3 countries simultaneously. So, what exactly is the Sand Village's goal? For some reason, Minato felt a sense of unease, but he couldn't quite put his finger on what it was. At this moment, Choza Akamichi asked. Then who are the enemies this time? Who is leading the Sand Village? Doden Akamichi said somewhat awkwardly. That's what's giving us a headache. The Sand Village's sudden attack was too unexpected, and our intelligence personnel haven't gathered much information. However, according to the information from our intelligence personnel in the Sand Village, the only high-ranking official in the Sand Village right now is Chio. Moreover, the Sand Village's actions this time are so significant, I'm afraid. Minato's eyes flashed as he said. So, are you saying that we might encounter the 4th Kazekage, who just took over the position of Kazekage in the Sand Village? Yes. Doden Akamichi nodded with a serious expression, then smiled and said. However, I believe you, Minato, are definitely more powerful than him. The atmosphere immediately relaxed, and Choza Akamichi also raised his thumb and said. That's right, Minato, you are now the idol of all the ninjas in our Konoha village. This made Minato show a slightly embarrassed smile on his face, and he quickly waved his hand and said. I am still far behind Lord Jiraiya and Lord Orochimaru. Speaking of this, his expression also became serious as he said. However, since there is such a possibility, we must be careful. Yeah, everyone nodded seriously. After all, this is war, and carelessness can lead to death. Just like that, taking advantage of the night, the Konoha ninjas quickly headed towards the Sand Village. The intelligence personnel in front also sent news, revealing the location where the Sand Village ninjas were camping. Hold back at the Yoshino River. After learning the information, Minato thought for a while and made a decision. Don't rush to attack. When we are 20 miles away from the Yoshino River, we will all rest first. Otherwise, the Sand Village ninjas will be waiting for us in full strength, and we won't have a chance of winning. When it dawns, we will move out and launch an attack. Yeah, everyone agreed. After all, due to the shortage of Konoha's combat power, half of those sent under Minato's command this time are genin. After traveling all night, sending them directly to the battlefield is no different from sending them to their deaths. At night, the moon hung high in the sky. The Sand Village also received news of the Konoha ninjas approaching. Interesting. Looking at the collected information, Rasa smiled and said to Yekora and Mikawa. As expected of ninjas who can fight the Cloud Village to this point, they are indeed very experienced. Mikawa also looked at the information and was shocked to see that after arriving, the Konoha ninjas didn't directly attack but chose to camp and rest 20 miles away. Should we launch a night attack? Now we are waiting for them in full strength. Rasa shook his head. Don't forget our purpose. The purpose of this war is not to kill many Konoha ninjas, but to buy time for Maki and Elder Ebizo. Since the Konoha ninjas want to rest, why shouldn't we? You are resting, but aren't we also resting? Yekora said somewhat dissatisfied. In that case, wouldn't it be better to directly defeat the Konoha ninjas through a night attack? With our current combat power, we can even annihilate this group of Konoha ninjas. And then? Rasa asked softly. Yekora was stunned and continued to say dissatisfied. What do you mean, and then? Don't forget that this is the land of fire. When it comes to the speed of reinforcements, Konoha is definitely faster than us. And what about us? For the ninjas in the village to come and support us, they have to cross the desert and pass through the river country. Yekora suddenly understood Rasa's meaning and was choked up, not knowing what to say. Moreover, how many ninjas do you think are left in the village who can support us? Yekora also realized this, and her expression became somewhat awkward. Rasa then continued to say, I never intended to directly go to war with Konoha this time, because it would not be worth it. If we do as you say, even if we can win, it will only anger Konoha. At that time, the only ones who will benefit will be the Cloud, Stone, and Mist villages. Even then, not to mention Konoha's counterattack, the Cloud, Stone, and Mist villages might also take the opportunity to attack us. Speaking of this, Rasa's tone softened slightly as he said, I understand your thoughts. We and Konoha may eventually have a battle, but it is definitely not now. What is most important to us now is military spending and supplies, because this concerns the future of our Sand Village. When we are confident in facing all the counterattacks, that is when the final battle will come. Hearing this, Yekora also realized that she was being somewhat reckless, but her arrogance made her embarrassed to admit her mistake. Mikawa said calmly. The Kazekage is right. Now is indeed not the time for a decisive battle. Well, you can go down later and convey my meaning to everyone. Remember, the first principle of our battle with Konoha for these 7 days is to survive. They are all the future of the village, and it would be too unworthy to sacrifice them here. Yeah, Mikawa nodded, looking at Rasa with a softened gaze as he said. I will inform everyone. As for Yekora, she just gritted her teeth and frowned. Rasa didn't care about Yekora's reaction and said lightly. Alright, since that's the case, then you should all go down and rest well. Mikawa got up and left, leaving only Yekora behind. This made Rasa ask somewhat strangely. What's wrong? Yekora, is there anything else? Yekora glanced at Rasa with her delicate little face, bit her lip, and said with some reluctance. They are right. Perhaps you are more suitable for the position of Kazekage than me. After saying that, without waiting for Rasa's reaction, she snorted coldly and turned to leave. Leaving only Rasa with a strange expression. What is this, Tsunere? However, he didn't care anymore. Next, he should seize the time to rest well. Just like that, Rasa peacefully closed his eyes and rested in his tent. Under the night, on the other end of the plain, in the forest 20 miles away. On top of the tall trees, Minato Namikaze looked at the dark and quiet forest in the distance. The Sand Village's calm reaction to the arrival of the Konoha ninjas made Minato's heart even more uneasy. For some reason, he seemed to feel it. In the forest in the distance, the lurking force was not ordinary Sand Village ninjas, but a terrifying beast, watching Konoha in the darkness. When will the war between people stop? Minato Namikaze sighed in his heart, then shook his head, throwing away the distractions in his mind, and returned to the tent to rest. The tempering of war had already turned Minato Namikaze into a ruthless war machine. Just like that, the night passed quickly. When the first ray of sunlight illuminated the entire earth, on the huge plain, the Sand Village ninjas and the Konoha ninjas had already lined up and were looking at each other. Almost before dawn, the well-rested Sand Village had already assembled. The ninja responsible for guarding the Konoha side immediately noticed the Sand Village's movements, and all the Konoha ninja in the camp also began to quickly gather. However, compared to the Sand Village ninja who had rested for the entire night, eaten and drank well, and looked energetic, the Konoha ninja who had rushed here had only woken up after resting for 2 or 3 hours. Fortunately, they were not transferred from the front lines but were conscripted from the village, so their condition was still good. After assembling, the Sand Village ninja immediately lined up in 3 phalanxes along the edges of the plain and forest. The Konoha ninja also responded accordingly. On the surface, it seemed that the Konoha ninja had the advantage in numbers, but when both sides truly lined up their formations, the Konoha ninja all swallowed hard. Especially those sensory ninja. They could clearly sense the immense chakra from the Sand Village side. Are you kidding me? There are so many Jonin. Did the Sand Village mobilize all of their Jonin? On the Konoha ninja side, feeling the terrifying aura emanating from the Sand Village phalanx, Shibi Aburame, Choza Akamichi, Inuzuka Gaku, and Dodo Akamichi's expressions all changed drastically. Crap, Minato, we've run into the Sand Village's main force. Minato naturally also sensed the terrifying aura of the Sand Phalanx, and his expression also became serious. Quickly send the news here back to the village. Yes. Inuzuka Gaku immediately used his summoning jutsu to summon a ninja dog to send the news to the village. But just as Inuzuka Gaku's ninja dog disappeared, the commotion coming from the Sand Village direction once again threw the Konoha ninja into disarray. 3 figures were seen descending from the sky, landing in front of the 3 phalanxes. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Minato's pupils constricted. Choza Akamichi next to him said in an extremely solemn tone. This is bad, Minato. Ah. It seems Dodo's prediction has come true. The 4th Kazekage of the Sand Village is indeed here. The other 2 are not to be underestimated either. Shibi Aburame's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the Sand Village phalanx in the distance. Pakura of the Scorch Release, Mikawa of the Magnet Release, both are famous ninja throughout the ninja world. While the Konoha ninja were observing the Sand Village, the 3 from the Sand Village were also observing the Konoha group. Minato Namikaze. Rasa murmured softly. Hearing Rasa's voice, Pakura instantly became interested, took a step forward, and looked at Minato, who had golden hair, in the distance, saying, "Is that the guy with the biggest reputation among the new generation of Konoha recently?" Mikawa then added, "Yeah, I heard that this Minato Namikaze is only 20 years old, but he has already earned the title of Yellow Flash on the battlefield against the Cloud Village. It is said that the Cloud Village has specifically issued an order that any ninja below the cage level can directly run away when encountering the Yellow Flash without being considered abandoning the mission." Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Pakura was also shocked upon hearing this. This guy is actually so powerful. In terms of age, Pakura, who was almost 25, was indeed older than Minato. Even Rasa was 3 years older than Minato. As for Mikawa, needless to say, he was already middle-aged. Rasa then said, "If you encounter him, you can also directly abandon the mission." Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Pakura turned her head to look at Rasa, frowning somewhat unhappily, and said, "Do you think I am not a match for this Konoha ninja?" After last night's events, Pakura no longer contradicted Rasa at every turn. "Yes," Rasa said without hesitation. "Neither of you may be his match. The reason why Minato Namikaze is called the Yellow Flash is because he has mastered the Flying Thunder God technique developed by the second Hokage." Flying Thunder God technique. This name was unfamiliar to both of them. That's right, it's a space-time ninjutsu, much faster than the body flicker technique. Let me put it this way, I can't find anyone faster than him in the ninja world right now. Your attacks simply can't hit him, but he can teleport to your side at any time. Even the 3rd Raikage probably wouldn't be able to react to this speed. Both of them were shocked. The 3rd Raikage's lightning chakra mode was famous throughout the ninja world, but now Rasa actually said that the 3rd Raikage's speed was not as good as this Konoha ninja, which made them frown and ask, "Doesn't that mean we can only run if we encounter him?" Theoretically, yes, but there is another way. After all, they were his own ninja, and the two sides were about to break out into battle, so Rasa still revealed the information. The Flying Thunder God technique's teleportation relies on a formula to locate, so in the process of battle, you only need to pay attention not to let the kunai engraved with the Flying Thunder God formula get close to you. In addition, the Flying Thunder God formula can also be directly left on people's bodies. Once this formula is left, it will not be eliminated, so. Both of them were terrified. Didn't that mean that this Minato Namikaze could teleport over to assassinate them at any time? No wonder. The Cloud Village was so afraid of this Konoha ninja. It was indeed a terrifying ninjutsu. Fortunately, since Rasa had come here, he had no intention of leaving Minato Namikaze to them. I'll take care of Minato Namikaze. You two take care of the Konoha ninja next to Minato Namikaze. Mikawa, you take care of those two from the Akamichi clan. Your magnet release is best suited for such large targets. As for Pakura, you take care of that Aburame clan ninja. Your scorch release is most effective against insects. Neither of them refused, but Pakura pouted and said, I hate insects. Yura, yes. From now on, the Anbu will need to record relevant data and collect enemy information for every battle, understand? Yes, Kazekage-sama. At this moment, in the opposing Konoha camp, Minato Namikaze, seeing that the situation was not right, took the initiative to stand out. Whoosh! Minato Namikaze was seen appearing in the center of the battlefield with a body flicker technique, coldly shouting at the Sand Village group. Kazekage of the Sand Village, are you leading the Sand Village ninja to invade our land of fire, preparing to start a war with our Konoha? He's calling you. Pakura glanced at Rasa and said when she heard Minato's shout. Rasa ignored Pakura and murmured, it's my turn to play. Interesting. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared from the spot in an instant, much to the surprise of Pakura and Mikawa. Whoosh! At this moment, in the very center of the battlefield, the most outstanding figures of the younger generation in the entire ninja world. The current 4th Kazekage of the Sand Village and the future 4th Hokage of Konoha stood face to face. Whether it was for Rasa or Minato, this was their first meeting. It must be said, although they were in different camps, Minato was indeed the type that gave people the impression of being a sunny and cheerful big boy at first glance. No wonder he had the nickname, Little Sun. It's a pity. As the sun rose, the golden sunlight of the morning slowly sprinkled on the two of them, but neither of them felt the slightest warmth. Instead, a sense of inexplicable tension filled the quiet plain. War. Rasa glanced coldly at Minato in front of him, his voice resounding throughout the battlefield. It's you Konoha who want to provoke a war, right? This made Minato a little stunned. He frowned slightly and said, unless I'm crazy, this place should be the territory of the Land of Fire, not the Land of Wind, Kazekage. Since you know this is the territory of the Land of Fire, then, do you also admit that our Tsunogakure's Kazekage disappeared in your Land of Fire? Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Minato was dumbfounded. He certainly knew about the disappearance of the 3rd Kazekage of Tsunogakure. But, what does this have to do with their Konoha, or even the Land of Fire? So, he frowned and asked. Kazekage, are you joking? Rasa's voice was low and contained anger. Of course I'm not joking. Because according to our village's Anbu investigation, the disappearance of the 3rd Kazekage is related to your Konoha. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. This time, not only the Konoha ninjas were shocked, but the Tsunogakure side was even more outraged. The 3rd Kazekage's prestige in Tsunogakure was simply too high. Minato obviously didn't expect this. He frowned and asked. Kazekage, you said that the disappearance of your 3rd Kazekage is related to our Konoha. Do you have any evidence? Does Rasa have evidence? Of course he doesn't. In fact, he's just talking nonsense now. But, does having evidence matter? Anyway, no one in the entire ninja world knows the reason for the 3rd Kazekage's disappearance except for him, Chio, Ebizo, Maki, and Sasori, and even the body can't be found, and these people will definitely not take the initiative to expose the truth about the 3rd Kazekage's disappearance, so, isn't he free to talk nonsense? I have no evidence. The air in the entire battlefield suddenly became quiet. But I know who killed the 3rd Kazekage. What? In the Tsunogakure formation, Mikawa's whole body shook. Everyone in your Konoha should know this person, that is the leader of your root, Danzo. That's right, since Danzo already bears the name of Pot Shadow, he doesn't mind bearing one more. As soon as this was said, the Konoha side was completely shocked. It's actually Elder Danzo. For some reason, if Rasa had said the name of any other person in Konoha village at this time, the Konoha ninjas might not have believed it, but if it was Elder Danzo, the Konoha ninjas hesitated instead. And seeing the strange expressions of the Konoha ninjas looking at each other, Mikawa, who was originally a little suspicious, was immediately furious. He had long suspected that the disappearance of the third Kazekage was inseparable from Konoha. Because, the only one in the entire ninja world who could make the third Kazekage disappear silently like this was Konoha. Rasa's words can be said to be full of loopholes, but sometimes, people at the emotional peak do not need to think. The Sunagaku ninjas originally held resentment towards Konoha, and now the fourth Kazekage directly named the murderer who killed the third Kazekage. Seeing this, Rasa continued to increase the stakes and said, "Your Konoha's root leader Danzo, in order to crack the secret of the third Kazecage's strongest magnet release, secretly killed the third Kazekage." Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Minato was completely stunned this time, and it took a while to recover and say, "Kazekage, since you don't have any evidence, how do you know that the disappearance of the third Kazekage is related to our Konoha's elder Danzo?" Rasa naturally had been prepared for this. "Although I don't have direct evidence, our Kazekage village's Anbu found some information in the process of searching for the third Kazekage." Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Minato was a little confused this time. Rasa was so certain, could it be that the third Kazekage was really killed by Elder Danzo? At this time, Mikawa couldn't bear it anymore. "What information, why don't I know?" Rasa glanced at Mikawa and said slowly. "When the Anbu were searching for the third Kazekage, they found traces of a battle in one place. According to the Anbu's investigation, traces of wood release were found there." "What? Wood release? How is this possible?" The Konoha ninjas reacted even more strongly than the Sunagaku ninjas. Minato shook his head and said with relief, "Impossible, Kazekage, although wood release is indeed our Konoha village's first Hokage's secret technique, but apart from the first Hokage, our Konoha ninja village no longer has a ninja who can use wood release." Hearing this, Rasa said with a mocking smile on his face. "Really? Konoha ninjas, your Konoha really doesn't have a ninja who can use wood release anymore, do you want to go back and investigate carefully?" Quote comma comma quote. Minato hesitated for a moment, because what Rasa said was too affirmative. Tingza and others behind him also changed their expressions slightly. "Don't worry, there is another message to tell you." Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. "We also found traces of the use of genjutsu on the bodies of the ninjas who died following the third Kazekage. Do you know what kind of genjutsu that is?" Minato frowned tightly, because there are only a handful of genjutsu in this ninja world that can trick a ninja of the Kage level, but Mikawa's emotions stabilized instead, because he'd personally supervised the disappearance of the third Kazekage, and no traces were found at all, let alone the corpses of dead ninjas. That is to say, Rasa is lying, but at this time, as a member of Sunagaku, he will not expose his Kazekage, but is a little curious about the secret of Rasa's statement. "It seems that you know, that's right, it's your Konoha's Sharingan." Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. The Konoha ninjas were even more sensational this time. Because what Rasa said was indeed too accurate, so accurate that the Konoha ninjas themselves were a little convinced. "But, impossible," Minato denied again. "Although the genjutsu of the Sharingan is indeed very powerful, it is impossible to control a cage with the Sharingan, and what does this have to do with Elder Danzo?" "What does it have to do with it? It's very simple." Rasa looked at Minato with cold eyes. It was finally time to use his trump card. "When we used secret techniques to check the last memories of this dead ninja, do you know what I saw?" Under everyone's gaze, Rasa said words that shocked all the Konoha ninjas. "Your elder Danzo is really amazing. He actually transplanted the cells of the first Hokage Senju Hashirama and the Sharingan onto his right hand." Why was Rasa saying so much? And even shifting the blame for the third Kazekage's disappearance onto Danzo. This was definitely not because Rasa disliked Danzo as a character. It was simply because he was now the Kazekage of Sunagaku in the Wind Country. Besides needing an absolutely righteous reason for this war, he also needed a chaotic Konoha. Only in this way, after the upcoming plunder of the Fire Country, would Konoha be unable to find an excuse to retaliate against Sanagakure. Even if they did, Konoha's internal strife would leave them unable to attend to their own affairs. Rasa had already said enough. He didn't need to produce any definitive evidence to accuse Danzo of being the murderer of the third Kazekage, because Rasa had spoken in such detail. It was like a small composition on Weibo in his previous life. Instead, Danzo needed to start working hard to prove his innocence. But could he? Of course not. Whether it was transplanting Hashirama's cells or Sharingan eyes, these were absolutely forbidden in the entire Konoha village. Today's news would definitely not be kept secret. Probably before long, the Konoha village would know all of this. The Senju clan was fine, since only Tsunade was left, but the Uchiha clan was different. Perhaps some would say that at this time, Danzo might not have transplanted Sharingan eyes yet. But it didn't matter anymore. Because of Rasa's accusation, as long as Danzo proved one, the other one could not be washed away even if Danzo wanted to. After all, Sharingan eyes could be transplanted at any time. In addition, Danzo's original discord with the Uchiha clan made it impossible for Danzo to wash away this suspicion. And when that time came, it wouldn't just be the Uchiha clan. Wouldn't the Hyuga clan worry about Danzo coveting their Byakugan? This would lead to internal division within Konoha. Of course, the more important reason was, did the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, have the courage to deal with Danzo? Of course he didn't. If he did, Danzo wouldn't have lived longer than him. And what Rasa needed most now was time. As long as he could get through this time, and use the power of open black lens bracket karma closed black lens bracket to strengthen himself a few more times, so that he also had the strength to dance in the ninja world, then, what was Konoha to be afraid of? However, those were things for later. Just from the present, as soon as Rasa's voice fell, the Konoha ninjas immediately erupted into a burst of chaotic sounds. At the same time, the Sanagakure side could clearly feel that the momentum of the Konoha ninjas had dropped a lot. Even Minato was stunned, because to be honest, at this moment, even he was starting to believe Rasa's words. If Rasa hadn't reminded him, it would have been one thing, but once reminded, Minato also suddenly noticed the strangeness of Elder Danzo's arm. What kind of injury required the use of bandages imprinted with sealing techniques? In fact, it wasn't just Minato who felt this. The Konoha Jonin here also had unsightly expressions. Regarding Danzo, the root of Konoha, most Konoha ninjas didn't have any good feelings. Fortunately, at this time, Choza behind Minato reminded him. Minato, we can't let this continue. If this continues, there's no need to fight this war. Why was there no need to fight? Because the Konoha ninjas were already destined to lose. Their morale had already fallen to this point. Minato also suddenly woke up, nodded heavily, and his gaze became serious again as he said. I'm sorry, Kazekage, regarding what you said, I can't determine the truth. I need to tell the village before I can give you an answer. However, the fact that you Sanagakure are invading the Fire Country is undeniable. Therefore, please leave the Fire Country's territory. Hey, what are you kidding me? Before Rasa could even speak, a Sanagakure Jonin behind him had already roared out. Your Konoha ninjas killed our third Kazekage-sama, and you say it so lightly. Unforgivable. Unforgivable. This Jonin's words instantly aroused the anger of the Sanagakure ninjas. Yeah, avenge third Kazekage-sama. Kill all the Konoha ninjas. Hand over that bastard named Danzo. Feeling the soaring momentum of the opposing Sanagakure ninjas, the faces of Minato and the Konoha ninjas behind him became extremely ugly. Rasa only felt that the morale of his troops was usable, and looked at Minato with indifferent eyes. Konoha ninjas, you've seen it too. If you don't hand over Danzo, we Sanagakure will definitely not leave. At this moment, Minato was also in a dilemma, but as a Konoha ninja, he had no other choice, and his right hand naturally reached into his ninja pouch. In that case, our positions are different, and I have no choice. Oh, are you going to make a move? Rasa raised an eyebrow, and his whole person became vigilant. A bitter look flashed across Minato's face. Could he not make a move? Of course not. He was a Konoha ninja, and Sanagakure was now invading the territory of the Fire Country. In any case, as a Konoha ninja, he could only drive them out, but could he really win? Whether it was the difference in strength between the two sides' ninjas, or the difference in momentum, Minato had no confidence at all. There's no other way, I can only make a quick decision. Thinking of this, without the slightest hesitation, Minato's right hand, which had reached into his ninja pouch, instantly took out 6 peculiar kunai, and threw them at Rasa without saying a word. HMPH, Rasa snorted coldly, watching the kunai flying towards him, from the earth beneath his feet. A golden whip immediately flew out, dancing wildly in the air, directly knocking away Minato's flying Thunder God kunai. What? Minato was shocked. This was something he hadn't expected. Because his flying Thunder God kunai, in order to prevent this situation, was never thrown directly at the enemy, but only at the enemy's top, bottom, left, and right, to find opportunities for his next attack. It was precisely because the purpose of the kunai was not the enemy, and the positions where the kunai landed were very far from the enemy, that almost all ninjas would not actively defend, but this fourth Kazekage was completely different. The moment he recognized the kunai, he made a move, knocking away his flying Thunder God kunai, causing his battle plan to fail, as if this Kazekage knew him very well. For some reason, Minato also had a sense of unease. Rasa had of course been prepared. From the moment he entered the battlefield, he had deliberately distanced himself from Minato. Because after knowing that the ninja leading the Konoha team was Minato, Rasa's brain instantly organized all the information he knew about Minato, and then came to 2 conclusions. First, he absolutely could not let Minato's flying Thunder God kunai seal off his range of movement. Second, he absolutely could not fight Minato in close combat. Because Minato, who possessed the flying Thunder God and Rasengan ninjutsu, could be said to be almost invincible in close combat. As long as he was approached, Rasa would not say he would definitely die, but he would definitely lose a layer of skin. Did it fail? At this moment, Minato frowned tightly. At the same time, he also realized that the battlefield he was in was very unfavorable to him. Because the endless plain could not hide his flying Thunder God kunai like a forest. However, could this stump him? Since it was useless to use the flying Thunder God kunai to seal off Rasa's movements from a distance, then he could only close the distance first. Thinking of this, he took out another flying Thunder God kunai, and at the same time, his entire figure disappeared from the spot. Body flicker technique. How could Rasa not know Minato's purpose? Thinking of this, Rasa directly put his hands together. Magnet release. Gold Dust World Method. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Instantly, around Rasa, on the boundless plain, as if exploding, countless golden, sharp thorny bushes rose from the ground. These golden thorns were not only sharp, but also covered with terrifying barbs. Under the sunlight, they formed a magnificent and dangerous golden thorny garden, protecting Rasa's figure within like a barrier. This prevented Minato from advancing, forcing him to appear outside the barrier. So powerful, is this Lord Kazekage's magnet release? As expected of Lord Kazekage, you should know that for the vast majority of people in Sanagakure, Rasa, the Kazekage, is still relatively mysterious, let alone Rasa's Kekkei Genkei. On Konoha's side, they watched Rasa's move, and many fell into deep thought, especially Minato's team. They understood Minato the most, so they could feel that Minato seemed to be in trouble. This Kazekage seemed to know Minato's information very well. Minato, at this moment, looked at the dense sand gold barrier in front of him, and his heart was also shocked. He also had the same feeling. This fourth Kazekage seemed to really understand his flying Thunder God technique. With such a dangerous barrier protecting him, it was obviously impossible to break through by force. Then, he could only slowly look for opportunities. Thinking of this, Minato suddenly started running around Rasa's sand gold barrier. Rasa was, after all, a cage with rich combat experience. How could he not know Minato's intention? Was he trying to find flaws in the sand gold barrier through rapid movement? How could Rasa let him have his way? Moreover, passively taking a beating was not in his nature. Thinking of this, Rasa once again clasped his hands together, and the chakra in his body surged. Instantly, the sand gold barrier around Rasa moved. Countless thorns turned into countless tentacles, and with incredible speed, stabbed towards the moving Minato. Seeing this, Minato, without any expression on his face, began to move quickly while forming hand seals. Wind release. Great breakthrough. The sand and dust in front of Minato were directly blown up, forming a sandstorm, hiding Minato's figure within it. At the same time, Rasa's senses also told him that Minato had used the body flicker technique, and his figure had completely disappeared, leaving Rasa's golden thorns without a target. Ninjas who could become Kage of a village almost all possessed some sensory abilities. Rasa was also expressionless, but his hand movements were not slow at all. Don't forget that wind release was also Rasa's most proficient ninjutsu. Wind release. Great breakthrough. The same ninjutsu, the same sky full of sand and dust, also hid Rasa's figure in the barrier. Rasa didn't intend to use wind release to reveal Minato's figure because, from the beginning of this battle, Rasa's set tactic was not to attack proactively. The pressure from the Flying Thunder God technique was too great for Rasa. Now, on the entire battlefield, both sides of the battle were obscured by sand and dust. This surprised both the Sanagakure ninjas and the Konoha ninjas who were watching the battle. However, the Konoha ninjas, especially Minato, were a little troubled. Because now they were in the land of fire, and Rasa was the invading party. He had already completed his invasion target. The next task was to defend, but Minato was different. He had to drive Rasa out, so he needed to take the initiative to attack. Rasa's action directly thwarted his plan to find flaws through movement. Minato had no choice but to show himself, preparing to forcefully destroy Rasa's sand-gold barrier. Minato was also a ninja with 3 attributes. In addition to wind release, he also possessed fire and lightning release. Fire release. Great fireball technique. The density of sand gold was high, but its melting point was much lower than iron, and the sand gold in Rasa's sand gold barrier was not very coarse. The intense flames, with terrifying high temperatures, directly attacked the sand gold barrier wrapped in sand and dust. Rasa, hidden in the barrier, felt the scorching heat and knew that this move could not be resisted head-on. Fortunately, in addition to magnet release, Rasa also had sand manipulation. Of course, he was also a ninja with wind, earth, and water release. However, in this environment, sand manipulation consumed much less chakra than using water release ninjutsu, and water release also had some restraining effect on his sand gold. Of course, Rasa would not create trouble for himself. Just when Minato was hoping that his fire release ninjutsu would work, a sand palm suddenly appeared from the sand and dust, slashing towards the flames with the sound of breaking through the air. Pa! A crisp and clear sound rang out, and Minato's great fireball technique was immediately blown away like a fly meeting a fly swatter. At this moment, Minato deeply felt the difficulty of this 4th Kazekage. And the scene of this giant hand blowing away the flames immediately aroused cheers from the Sanagakure ninjas. Only Ebizo and Mikawa had surprised faces. The two looked at each other and saw the doubts in each other's eyes. Is this the sand manipulation technique developed by the 2nd Hokage? When did Rasa? For some reason, the two thought of a possibility. Could it be that Elder Ebizo actually handed Shukaku over to Rasa? Because other than that, there was no way to explain why Rasa could master sand manipulation. You should know that the sand manipulation technique was mastered by the 2nd Hokage through the study of Shukaku. But this could only explain half of it. Because since the sand manipulation technique was developed by the 2nd Hokage, no one had successfully mastered the sand manipulation technique except for the 2nd Hokage, the Jinchuriki Bunpuku, and Kurora. How did Rasa do it? The expressions of the two became solemn. From the 3rd Kazekage's matter just now, to the current sand manipulation technique. The two discovered that they thought they knew Rasa very well, but now it seemed that they knew nothing about Rasa. At this time, Rasa also felt that although the sand-iron barrier was very invincible in defense, it also had obvious limitations on him, that was, the existence of the sand-gold barrier limited his own range of movement to a small barrier. Since that's the case, Rasa retracted the sand-iron barrier, then clasped his hands together and slammed them on the ground. Sand release. Erosion wheel tomb. In an instant, both sides of the battlefield felt a violent vibration coming from under their feet, and then the earth cracked, and countless sand and gravel flew out of the cracks. In just a moment, the plain where the two sides were fighting was turned into a desert. Boom! So, So powerful, at this time. It was not the era of the first Hokage randomly opening Gundams. Nor was it the era of the Fourth Ninja World War where immortals flew around. So such a large-scale ninjutsu still made many lower ninjas and chunin who had never seen the world swallow their saliva desperately. As for why Rasa had to go to so much trouble to change the battlefield, the reason was also very simple. Minato, who descended from the sky, immediately felt the softness of the sand under his feet when his feet stepped on the desert. It seemed that his entire feet were about to sink into it, and the uneasiness in his heart immediately jumped up. Looking at Rasa's calm eyes in the distance, Minato's eyes narrowed, understanding Rasa's intention. This desert was all under Rasa's control. This meant that his flying thunder god Kunai would also be swallowed by the desert, disrupting their positions. Minato was really having a headache now. Rasa seemed to really understand him, making all his proficient methods fail. As the commander of the Konoha side now, what Minato had to do was to resolve the opponent's commander while trying to avoid a large-scale war between the two sides, because with the strength of Konoha's ninjas at this time, facing the Sand Village, which was in full swing, they would only be going up to their deaths in vain. It seems that I can only use that move. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated, bit his finger, smeared blood on the palm of his hand, and began to form hand seals. Summoning technique. Boom. Accompanied by a huge cloud of smoke, a gigantic, mountain-like shadow appeared on the battlefield where the two sides were engaged. Whether it was the Sand Village or the Leaf Village ninjas, many had never even heard of summoning beasts. As the smoke dissipated, a giant red toad, as huge as a small mountain, appeared in everyone's sight, shocking the eyes of countless ninjas. What is that monster? What a huge toad! Is that also a summoning beast? Of course, there were also some who remained unmoved, such as Rasa, Mikawa, and Ebizo. Their understanding of the Leaf Village far surpassed that of other ninjas. That is one of the three ninja, Jiraiya's summoning beast. On top of the giant toad's head, Minato stood there, saying apologetically, "Sorry, Gamabunta, for summoning you." Gamabunta's huge eyes looked around, and the pipe in his mouth puffed out a large cloud of smoke. "That's the forehead protector of the Sand Village. Minato, is it war again?" Minato scratched his head awkwardly. I'm really sorry, but I can't help it, Gamabunta. The situation on the Leaf Village's side isn't good, and the opponent's ninjas are too troublesome. I can only rely on you to get close to him." Gamabunta's huge eyes turned, looking at Rasa, who was standing calmly in the distance. "This is," Minato said even more awkwardly. "That is the fourth Kazekage of the Sand Village." "What?" Gamabunta was stunned, and then complained with a somewhat unsightly expression. "Minato, you really found me a good opponent. Gamabunta, you only need to help me get close to him." "I understand. Although as summoning beasts of the three great sage lands, they default to not participating in wars between humans. Sometimes issues of position always make these summoning beasts break the rules." At this time, seeing such a huge summoning beast, and one of the three ninja, Jiraiya's summoning beast, Mikawa and Ebizo instantly came to Rasa's side. "Need help?" Rasa shook his head, saying very calmly, "Act according to the original plan. We can start the next phase." This made the two of them a little surprised, but they still nodded. Only then did Rasa look up at the giant toad that was blocking the sun above his head, saying coldly, "What an enviable summoning beast. In that case, I can't hold back either." Minato was stunned, and then saw Rasa forming hand seals. "Let me see whether my Shukaku or your toad is more powerful." Magnet release. Shukaku manifestation. Instantly, the entire plane began to shake, and the sand and gravel under everyone's feet began to gather under Rasa's feet, slowly coalescing into a monster almost as huge as Gamabunta. When Gamabunta saw the appearance of this monster, he was first startled, and then breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it's not a real tailed beast. What? Minato's reaction was a little intense when he heard the words tailed beast. Gamabunta explained, while starting to draw his short sword from his waist. "Don't worry, it's just exactly the same as Shukaku. It's not a real tailed beast, but it doesn't look easy to deal with. Get ready, I'm going in." Boom, as a burst of noise rang out, Gamabunta, with his sword in hand, leapt from the air, directly slashing towards Rasa's Shukaku manifestation. And Mikawa and Ebizo, who had received the order, also waved their hands, and instantly, the Sand Village ninjas directly attacked and killed the Leaf Village ninjas. The war between the Sand Village and the Leaf Village officially broke out. On the vast desert, accompanied by the huge figure blocking the sun overhead, Gamabunta's figure descended from the sky, wielding his short sword and slashing towards Rasa, who was on top of the Shukaku manifestation. Clang! A crisp sound of swords clashing rang out in the air. In response, one of the arms of the Shukaku manifestation raised up, blocking this slash. How is that possible? Gamabunta, who was suspended in midair, felt the terrifying power coming from his hand and the hard surface of this giant sand monster, and his expression changed drastically. That's enough, Gamabunta. Minato's goal was only to get close to Rasa, and now the distance was enough. But just as Minato was preparing to overdraw the flying thunder god kunai, Gamabunta suddenly retreated violently, spun around in the air, and then stopped. Only a huge tail swept over, heavily smashing into the ground. If Gamabunta hadn't dodged quickly, just this one blow would have seriously injured him. Are you alright, Gamabunta? Don't worry, I'm fine. This guy's skin is really hard, it made my hand hurt. At this time, Minato also keenly saw the golden light under the surface of the Shukaku manifestation that had been cut open. It's sand gold. The fourth Kazekage integrated his sand gold into this monster. So that's how it is. No wonder it feels like an iron bump to me, Minato. It seems that it won't work to force it. Find the right opportunity, use ninjutsu. Yeah, here I go. Gamabunta's huge body instantly slashed towards the Shukaku manifestation again. Only this time he became smarter. When the tail of the Shukaku manifestation swung towards him, his figure immediately spun around in the air, and at the same time, he formed hand seals with both hands in the air. Since it's sand, it must be afraid of water. Water release, bullet. The giant water bubble directly attacked the Shukaku manifestation. As expected of the summoning beast of Mount Myoboku, this amount of chakra. This level of water release is probably close to S rank. Rasa still didn't make any movements, just controlled the Shukaku manifestation, raised his arm, and at the same time a golden shield condensed from sand gold appeared on his arm, like an umbrella, blocking this bullet. The defensive power of sand gold is indeed terrifying. The water bubble exploded with a bang, turning into a boundless rainstorm falling from the sky. Minato suddenly saw something and said, Gamabunta, we have to move the battlefield. There are many ninjas in the village here. I know. Seeing that his attack had no effect, Gamabunta also retreated rapidly. Rasa gave him a lot of face, controlling the huge figure of the Shukaku manifestation to chase after him, because he was also worried that his ninjutsu would accidentally injure his own ninjas. Without the two giant monsters, the Sand Village and Leaf Village ninjas finally began to fight with all their strength. Before long, the two moved to a deserted place next to them. Seeing Gamabunta still walking forward, Rasa shouted impatiently. Hey, I said Leaf Village ninja. Where are you running to? This place is good enough, right? Only then did Gamabunta stop his running body, turned around and looked at Rasa, while Minato on his head had a solemn expression. Gamabunta, we must make a quick decision. The ninjas in the village won't be able to hold on for long. I know, we'll attack separately. He'll definitely be distracted controlling this monster. Yeah. In an instant, Minato leapt from the top of Gamabunta's head, and he and Gamabunta split up, attacking Rasa from the left and right. How could Rasa possibly allow them to get close? Gamabunta was one thing, but letting Minato get close was practically suicide. Rasa immediately formed hand seals. Magnet release, gold dust rain. As the words fell, countless golden needles densely filled the sky behind Rasa, transforming into a rain of needles that flew towards the two, covering a vast area and moving at such speed that it was impossible to dodge. Leave it to me. Minato immediately formed hand seals, his hands creating afterimages. Wind release. Pressure damage. A powerful gale erupted directly from Minato's mouth, engulfing all the incoming gold dust needles within it. The gale didn't stop, heading straight towards the Shukaku construct. Rasa's gaze didn't change in the slightest. When it came to wind release, he was also an expert. Wind release. Pressure damage. He used the same wind release technique again, and the two gales collided, instantly forming an insurmountable wind barrier between the Shukaku construct in Minato and Gamabunta. Gamabunta, who tried to get close, was blown away. As expected of the Kazekage, such impressive wind release. Gamabunta thought for a moment, then offered his suggestion. Minato, I can't be of much help against a monster like that. Gamaken would be more suitable. Minato had also realized this. I understand. Thank you for your trouble, Gamabunta-sama. Don't mention it. I'll head back then. Minato would have liked Gamabunta to stay and help him deal with the other Sand Village ninja. But having summons participate in ninja battles between people was somewhat against Mount Myoboku's rules. Gamabunta had only come to fight out of respect for Minato. Now, having him fight ordinary sand ninja was definitely out of the question. As Gamabunta returned to the summoning realm, Minato quickly formed hand seals. Summoning technique. As the white mist dissipated, a large red toad holding a black iron fork and carrying an iron shield on its back appeared before Minato. Gamaken-sama, I'm counting on you from here on out. You just need to hold back that monster for me. Gamaken looked at the giant monster before him and immediately understood Minato's intentions. I understand. Although I'm clumsy, I'll do my best. Rasa could only feel envy at this sight. This was the foundation of the Leaf Village. Such powerful summons could be exchanged at will, but Rasa could only rely on himself. Gamaken waved the iron fork in his hand, thrust his legs forward, and arrived in the air, swinging the fork down at the Shukaku construct. Rasa used Shukaku's arms to block, immediately feeling the difference between Gamaken and Gamabunta. Gamaken's strength was far greater than Gamabunta's, and Rasa felt the Shukaku construct beneath him tremble all over. What terrifying power! If he were knocked down like this, even the Shukaku construct might not be able to withstand it. At this moment, Minato had already seen an opportunity and was rapidly approaching. Seeing this, Rasa immediately formed hand seals. Magnet release, gold dust rain. Leave it to me. Looking at the countless needles flying towards him, Gamaken took out the shield on his back and directly held it up. Minato followed closely behind, troublesome fellow. Rasa clapped his hands together, and two sand arms shot out from the ground, grabbing towards Gamaken's feet in the air. Leave it to me. Wind release, severing pressure. Sharp wind blades flew out, directly cutting off the two arms, turning them into endless fine sand falling from the sky. At this moment, Gamaken had already arrived in front of the Shukaku construct, and with great experience, he didn't approach with his flesh, but directly held up the shield, relying on the weight and momentum of his body, and slammed it heavily towards the Shukaku construct's head. Now Rasa really had no choice. He could only abandon the Shukaku construct, retreating backward. Opportunity. At this moment, Minato finally saw an opportunity. The so-called opportunity was twofold. First, Minato was very close to Rasa. Even if the flying thunder god Kanai was knocked away at this distance, he would still be able to completely close the distance between them. As long as he got close to Rasa, then to Minato, who possessed the flying thunder god and the Rasengan, Rasa would be meat on the chopping block. Second, Rasa was now in midair, without a foothold, making it difficult to adjust his posture. Although this had a negligible impact on a cage-level ninja, for a ninja of this level, a single opening could be fatal. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated, and the flying thunder god Kanai flew out directly. Rasa naturally controlled the iron whip formed by the gold dust again, wanting to knock the flying thunder god Kanai away. But the flying thunder god Kanai only flew halfway before the flying thunder god technique was activated, and Minato's figure appeared, then grabbed the flying thunder god Kanai, looked at the incoming gold whip, directly swiped the Kanai across the gold whip and threw it towards Rasa, while Minato's figure disappeared from the spot. Because the distance between the two at this time was too short, almost instantly, the flying thunder god Kanai had already arrived at Rasa's face. Holding a Rasengan that shone with a bright light, he appeared in front of Rasa, tearing through space. Rasa's eyes flickered slightly, and he put his hands together. Gold dust world barrier. Countless golden thorns directly covered Rasa's surroundings, wanting to block Minato. But at this moment, Minato's figure disappeared again. Whoosh! Got him! Minato's emotionless voice rang out from behind Rasa, and the dazzling light of the Rasengan completely enveloped Rasa at this moment. But at this moment, Minato's face, which should have been happy for seizing victory, suddenly furrowed. That's not right, because the feeling that came from the Rasengan after hitting Rasa was too strange. It didn't feel like hitting a solid object, but rather like the feeling of sand. The unease in his heart made Minato involuntarily retreat backward. But Rasa's counterattack didn't come. Instead, Minato heard Gamaken's voice in his ear. What is this? Minato looked in the direction of the voice in surprise. He saw that at the same time he attacked Rasa, the sand of the Shukaku construct, which had been scattered by Gamaken's shield, seemed to suddenly come to life, instead enveloping Gamaken, who was close at hand, completely. Gamaken waved the iron fork, thrusting his legs forward, wanting to struggle, but suddenly found that he couldn't exert any strength in his whole body, and even the connection with Mount Myoboku was cut off. Countless violet-patterned incantations appeared out of thin air, transferring from the Shukaku construct to Gamaken's body. As Kushina Uzumaki's husband, Minato was also quite skilled in sealing techniques, so his expression changed drastically. This is a sealing technique, crap, Minato reacted, but it was too late. In just an instant, Gamaken was sealed into a giant sand-gravel sealing formation like a pyramid, only having time to leave a sentence. I'm sorry, Minato, and Rasa's figure slowly appeared from the top of the pyramid. Minato turned back to look, and as the dust dissipated, Rasa, who had just been hit by the Rasengan, was still completely transformed into the shape of sand. A sand clone? Was it prepared in advance? Minato frowned tightly. Although such a result was also within his expectations, after all, the opponent was the Kazekage, and it was unlikely that he would be defeated by himself so easily. But Gamaken's being sealed was definitely beyond his expectations. In other words, the other party's target wasn't him, but Gamaken? But why? This was definitely not planned from the beginning. Because whether it was Gamabunta or Gamaken, they were both summoned by him during the battle. It was impossible for the other party to predict it in advance. For some reason, thinking of the conversation between the two sides not long ago, Minato suddenly had a guess. Could it be that the Sand Village doesn't intend to fight to the death with the Leaf Village? As if to confirm his guess, Rasa, standing on the top of the pyramid, slowly said, "Now, Leaf Village ninja, with just a flick of my finger, I can crush your summon into powder." Seeing this, Minato understood what was happening. He looked left and right across the battlefield, his brow furrowing even more. Because this conflict between the two villages had only just erupted, the Konoha ninjas had already suffered a significant blow. The Chunin and Jonin were able to withstand the attacks of the Sanagakure ninjas for a while, but the Genin were all being cut down like vegetables. Shibi and the others' opponents were also very troublesome. Shibi's insects and Inuzuka Kiba's ninja dogs techniques were completely countered by Pakura's scorch release from Sanagakure. They couldn't even get close, as they would be killed by the evaporation of the water in their bodies by the high-temperature fireballs. As for Choji and Tonto, their multi-size technique could only barely hold on against Mikawa's iron sand. As for why the two sides didn't switch opponents, that would require the Sanagakure ninjas to agree. Pakura and Mikawa, who had already learned about Konoha's intelligence from Rasa, would never allow their enemies to get their way. It should be known that Pakura's scorch release was fine. Even if she changed opponents, she could still deal with the Akamichi clan's close combat ninjas. But Mikawa would be in trouble. The Aburame clan's insects also had a restraining effect on iron sand, absorbing the chakra on the iron sand and causing Mikawa to lose control of it. Seeing this, Minato stood below Rasa's pyramid of gold dust, his expression serious. "So, Kazekage of Sanagakure, what exactly is your purpose?" "Purpose? My purpose is very simple. Konoha must hand over the culprit who killed our third Kazekage, Danzo, and compensate Sanagakure for our losses. We can withdraw our troops immediately. Otherwise, Sanagakure and Konoha will fight to the death." At this moment, Minato had no choice. Although neither he nor Rasa could do anything to the other in their battle at this moment, the Konoha ninjas could no longer hold on, and there was also Elder Ken. If something happened to him, he would not be able to explain it to Mount Myoboku and Master Jiraiya. "I understand. Then, let's call a temporary truce. Please give me 7 days. In these 7 days, I will tell the village everything that happened here, and then the village will make a decision." 3 days. I'll only give you 3 days. If there is no answer after 3 days, we will declare war on Konoha. Minato knew that 3 days was absolutely impossible. 5 days. 3 days is too short. We still need to investigate some things. As the Kage of Sanagakure, you should understand that Elder Danzo is an elder of our Konoha village. Rasa frowned. 4 days. This is my final deadline. At dawn 4 days from now, if I don't get an answer, then don't blame Sanagakure for taking action. Minato was also a little helpless. I understand. Then, let's call a truce. HMPH. Rasa snorted coldly and waved his hand to signal a retreat. The Sanagakure ninjas, who were in the midst of a fierce battle with Konoha, heard the order to retreat. Although they were somewhat unwilling, because the village had already conveyed to them through the Jonin last night that the main goal of this war was to survive, everyone stopped fighting and withdrew from the battlefield. Seeing this, the Konoha ninjas also breathed a sigh of relief, but looking at the corpses of the Chunin and Genin scattered all over the ground, they gritted their teeth. At this moment, Rasa's voice resounded across the battlefield of both sides. Remember your promise, Konoha ninjas. I'll give you 4 days. If you don't hand over the culprit who killed the third Kazekage Danzo, this war will definitely not end so easily. We're retreating. At this moment, while hating the Sanagakure ninjas, the Konoha ninjas also felt a trace of resentment towards Elder Danzo in the village. Seeing the Sanagakure ninjas retreating, Minato also returned to his side. What do we do now? Choji Akamichi, covered in cold sweat and panting, asked. Minato looked at the departing Sanagakure ninjas and sighed, saying to Inuzuka Kiba. Kiba, I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you to return to the village this time and tell the Hokage everything that happened here. Since Elder Danzo was involved, simply conveying the information was not enough. It had to be a ninja with weight and status to personally bring this information to the village. On the Sanagakure ninja side, Rasa led everyone to retreat while beckoning Yura of the Anbu to approach. Your Anbu must convey what happened here today to Kumogakure, Iwagakure, Kirigakure, and Konoha as soon as possible, especially the Uchiha clan of Konoha. Understood, Kazekage-sama. In an instant, under Yura's leadership, several Anbu ninjas left the troop. When they arrived at the Sanagakure camp, everyone went down to rest. At this time, Mikawa approached and said, I have some things I want to ask you. Seeing this, Pakura couldn't help but walk over. Let's talk in the camp tent. Walking into the camp tent, the two sat down. Seeing the impatient Mikawa, Rasa directly reached out to stop Mikawa, who wanted to speak, and said, I know what you want to ask, but now, the third Kazekage can only be killed by Konoha's Danzo. This is the most beneficial answer for our Sanagakure at present. Mikawa instantly understood Rasa's meaning. He was a little unwilling, and had countless questions in his heart, but seeing that Rasa had no intention of answering at all, he could only give up. Pakura also understood something, and looked at Rasa in surprise, but she didn't ask the doubts in her heart, but changed the subject and asked. Is 4 days too much time to give Konoha? If they prepare, our situation will be very troublesome. Don't worry, I've already asked the Anbu to pass on what happened today to the other countries. Kumogakure and Iwagakure will definitely take action. Seeing that Rasa had already arranged everything, Pakura also felt relieved. For some reason, recalling what had happened these days, Rasa's resourcefulness made Pakura truly begin to recognize Rasa as the Kazekage. At this moment, Rasa spoke. In the next 4 days, Konoha shouldn't have any movement. This place is also relatively stable, so I plan to secretly return to the village. We'll leave this place to the two of you for the time being. This surprised the two of them, but they didn't ask what Rasa was going back to the village for. This was not something they should ask. Whether they agreed with Rasa in their hearts or not, the fact that Rasa was the village's Kazekage was indisputable. Moreover, there was no possibility of conflict between the two sides in the short term. Even if there was, Sanagakure's current military strength was fully capable of dealing with it. As for what was the purpose of Rasa leaving, of course, it was to continue to use the open black lens bracket Karma closed black lens bracket to enhance his strength. Through this battle, he was already able to feel that with his current strength, he could only fight against one Minato Namikaze, and still couldn't determine the winner. If Konoha had another expert of Minato's level participating in the war, then he simply wouldn't be able to cope. Therefore, he had to raise his strength to another level before the next war began. As for the next target to choose, Rasa already had a plan. When it comes to the best chakra to obtain at this time, it is naturally the star from that small Hoshigakure, the star. Rasa's prediction was correct. It didn't even take half a day, with the sand villages Ebu fanning the flames. The cloud, stone, and mist villages all learned about the contact war between the sand village and the leaf village. Land of lightning, cloud village. Ah! Seeing the intelligence report from the Anbu in his hand, the third Raikage smashed the table in front of him in anger. What's going on? What are you Anbu doing? You didn't react at all to the Leaf's change of commander on the front lines. The Anbu ninja were startled. Tsuchikage, as a confidant of the third Raikage, stepped forward and said, "Third Raikage-sama, it's not the Anbu's fault. The Leaf must have been prepared. It's normal for the Anbu not to notice." As the third Raikage's son, and the future fourth Raikage, I also spoke up. "Yeah, old man, but this is our Cloud Village's chance. Now that even the Sand Village is attacking the Leaf, plus Onoki, that old man, the current Leaf Village definitely can't cope with the siege of our three countries." Contrary to his seemingly reckless appearance, the third Raikage was actually very meticulous, otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to steadily control the Cloud Village. He thought for a moment and asked Tsuchikage, "What do you think of this Sand Village intelligence?" Tsuchikage said with great certainty, "This intelligence shouldn't be a problem, but the content is too unbelievable. Could it be that the third Kazekage of the Sand Village was really, by Danzo of the Leaf?" The third Raikage breathed heavily through his nose. "I've met this guy called Danzo. He's a ninja who makes people feel disgusted as soon as they get close, like a rat in a sewer. If it's this guy, it's indeed possible that the third Kazekage died in his assassination. In that case, the Leaf is really going to be finished this time," I said happily. "Whether it's wood release or Sharingan, this guy can be considered to have violated the Leaf's two major taboos. The Leaf's internal and external troubles are what the Cloud Village wants to see most." The third Raikage fell into deep thought. I looked at him curiously and asked, "Old man, what are you thinking about?" The third Raikage pondered for a while, looked at the Anbu, and said, "You guys keep a close eye on this guy called Danzo. If there's a chance, bring him to our Cloud Village." Everyone understood now. Raikage-sama had his eyes on the wood release and Sharingan on this man. This was indeed something that everyone coveted. If the Cloud Village could obtain it, then they could completely surpass the Leaf and become the #1 ninja village in the ninja world. Tsuchikage swallowed, calmed himself down, and then said, "Then on the Leaf's side, should we take advantage of the situation?" The third Raikage asked the Anbu, "Who is the commander on the Leaf's side now?" The Anbu immediately replied, "Our people have already found out. It's Orochimaru." As soon as these words came out, everyone in the room became gloomy. "Good. Really good. It's time to avenge Bruby." Bruby was the first Eight Tails Jinchuriki of the Cloud Village, and also the third Raikage's nephew and the fourth Raikage's cousin. 6 years ago, as revenge for the Cloud Village's kidnapping of the Leaf's 9 Tails Jinchuriki, the Leaf sent Orochimaru to infiltrate the Cloud Village, causing the 8 Tails Jinchuriki to go berserk. The village suffered heavy losses, and Bruby died as a result. The Cloud Village had always remembered this hatred. "Convey my orders. All Cloud Village troops, immediately enter the Land of Fire. The war has begun." Just as the Cloud Village decided to launch a full-scale attack on the Leaf, the third Tsuchikage of the Stone Village, Onoki, also had a drastic change in expression as he looked at the intelligence he had just obtained. However, compared to the so-called Danzo and the death of the third Kazekage, Onoki was more concerned about the wood release and Sharingan. As expected, the Leaf has never given up on researching the power of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. As Onoki, who had personally seen Madara Uchiha, he understood how terrifying the wood release and Sharingan were. "Old man, what should we do now?" Although Onoki was always good at calculating, he still understood some things very clearly. "We must not let the Leaf succeed in their research. This time, you personally lead the team. Call Han and Roshi, and tell them about the Sharingan and wood release. They will cooperate with you." "I understand. Then I'll leave now." "Yeah." Onoki nodded, then looked at his son, saying meaningfully, "Remember, this time, our Stone Village will mainly help the Cloud Village to hold back the Leaf. Absolutely don't let our ninjas die in vain." "I understand. Land of the Sea. Located on the sea between the land of fire and the land of water. Composed of countless islands. Because of its unique geographical environment, it has become a hiding place for many dark forces. Madara Uchiha was hiding here. On an island near the leaf, in a huge cave, Madara Uchiha, who was eking out a living with the demonic statue of the outer path, looked at the intelligence sent by White Zetsu and struggled to remember who Danzo was. So that's how it is. Is he one of Tobirama's disciples? It seems that Tobirama's disciples aren't all useless. It's a pity, it's useless. To awaken the power of all things creation, one must have the power of the sage body and the sage eyes. What is the power of the sage body and the sage eyes? Through the Uchiha clan's stone tablet, Madara Uchiha already knew that it was the power of Indra and Asura. He was already certain that he and Hashirama were the people who inherited the power of these two. However, a mere brat dares to covet Hashirama's power. Zetsu. Above his head, on the rock wall, two white Zetsu moved within it, slowly falling down like mucus, condensing into a human form, and said, Madara-sama, what do you need? Is there anything? Madara Uchiha said coldly, go and keep an eye on this brat called Danzo. I want to confirm whether he has really obtained Hashirama's power. Understood, Madara-sama. Although the leaf had a barrier, Madara Uchiha, as someone who had once co-founded the leaf, naturally knew the method to break the barrier. Especially after Mito's death, the leaf no longer had the power to sense the existence of White Zetsu. As for that new nine-tails Jinchuriki, the little girl. HMPH. Madara snorted coldly, his tone full of disdain. As the two white Zetsu left, the entire cave fell silent again. To save chakra, Madara Uchiha also fell into a state of false sleep. At this time, the news from the battlefield also reached the Leaf. The Leaf Elder Council naturally chose to conceal the information as soon as they received it, but Rasa had planned ahead, and soon, through spies hidden in the Leaf, the news from the battlefield spread into the Leaf village. Especially into the ears of the Uchiha clan. But unexpectedly, before the Uchiha clan could make a move, another person in the Leaf village had already stormed into the Hokage's office in uncontrollable anger. Konoha, the Hokage building. With a loud bang, the door of the Konoha Hokage building was kicked open. In the conference room, the Konoha elders, who were listening to Inuzuka Kiba's report, frowned when they saw Tsunade appear, and felt uneasy. Before Hiruzen Sarutobi could speak, Kaharu Udatane preemptively asked, Tsunade, are you trying to rebel? This is the Hokage's office, how can you? Unfortunately, Tsunade was even more tyrannical than Kaharu Udatane. At this moment, Tsunade roared with a face full of anger. Shut up, you old hag! Kaharu Utatane was shocked and wanted to get angry, but she was startled by Tsunade's murderous gaze. Don't force me to kill you. After uttering this shocking sentence to everyone in the office, Tsunade glanced around and asked Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was sitting there quietly. Where is Danzo? Hearing this, Hiruzen Sarutobi understood something. At this moment, an Enbu appeared beside Hiruzen Sarutobi and whispered something, causing Hiruzen Sarutobi to frown even more. He sighed and said, Tsunade, calm down first. This matter needs to be thoroughly investigated. Unfortunately, Tsunade didn't give him any face at all. After all, that was her grandfather. It would have been one thing if he had died, but his body was defiled and desecrated by that guy Danzo. Investigate what? Old man, stop talking nonsense. Let Danzo come out. I'll know as soon as I see his arm. Hiruzen Sarutobi certainly couldn't do that, so he could only stall for time. I will have people look for Danzo, but you need to calm down first. This is a conspiracy by Sanagakure. A conspiracy? Tsunade sneered. I'll know if it's a conspiracy or not when I see Danzo. At this point, Tsunade looked at her teacher and the two elders, who didn't seem surprised. She suddenly thought of something, her pupils shrank, her face turned ugly, and she asked, gritting her teeth. Teacher, could it be that you already knew about it? Or was it something you allowed from the start, desecrating grandfather's body? Teacher, don't forget, you are Tobirama-sensei's disciple. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the room changed color, and even Homura Mitokado couldn't help but roar. Tsunade, this is not a place for you to be presumptuous. Tsunade roared back without fear. What, does Elder Homura Mitokado also want to kill me? After all, I am the only descendant of the Senju clan. You must want to take my body for research. Now, both Homura Mitokado and Kaharu Udatane's faces were ashen. But they really couldn't do anything about Tsunade. Tsunade was not only the only remaining member of the Senju clan, but also one of the Sannin. Jiraiya and Orochimaru were not easy to deal with. Fortunately, Orochimaru had been sent to the battlefield in Kumogakure. Seeing this, Hiruzen Sarutobi, sitting in the Hokage seat, could only sigh helplessly and say, Tsunade, I admit that the village did research on the first Hokage's body, but that was only to decipher the secrets of wood release and enhance the village's strength. Moreover, I stopped this research 5 years ago. As for whether the information from Sanagakure is true or false, I can only confirm it after Danzo comes. At this moment, another Anbu appeared beside Hiruzen Sarutobi and whispered something. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression also changed slightly, and he looked at Tsunade, unsure of how to speak. What is it, old man? Is there something you can't tell me? Hiruzen Sarutobi said with a headache. Just received news that Kumogakure and Iwagakure have launched surprise attacks on the borders of the Land of Fire. The war has fully broken out. Danzo, he, has rushed to the battlefield. Now, Tsunade really exploded with anger. Wasn't Danzo admitting it without being forced? How could there be such a coincidence? Old man, you are the Hokage. Doesn't Danzo need to inform you when he leaves the village? Seeing Tsunade's angry appearance, Hiruzen Sarutobi naturally knew that Danzo must have gone out to avoid the limelight. As for whether Danzo really transplanted the first Hokage's cells and Sharingan, although Hiruzen Sarutobi had no evidence, he subconsciously felt that it was true, because that was something Danzo would do. But he couldn't say anything, because in his heart, Danzo's importance far outweighed the first Hokage's cells and Sharingan. He could only persuade her. Tsunade, I will definitely give you an explanation for this matter, but the overall situation is the most important thing now. After the situation on the border stabilizes, I will investigate Danzo. At this moment, listening to Hiruzen Sarutobi's words, Tsunade's eyes turned cold. There was no anger on her face, but she smiled coldly, looked at her teacher, who was already unfamiliar, and left without looking back. Watching Tsunade leave like this, Kaharu Udatane frowned and said, Tsunade is becoming more and more unruly, just like Orochimaru. Homura Mitokado then warned, Tsunade is a small matter, the Uchiha clan is the big trouble. Even Tsunade knows, the Uchiha clan is probably getting the news too. Kaharu Udatane snorted dismissively. Don't worry, Fugaku's personality is too weak. He doesn't dare to fall out with the village. Just keep an eye on those Hakushu Uchiha. What about Sunagaku's side? Hiruzen Sarutobi thought for a while and gave the answer. If it really doesn't work, I'll have to take action. Kaharu Udatane and Homura Mitokado nodded in relief. Kaharu Udatane was right. Long after Tsunade left, the Uchiha clan came to the Hokage building under Fugaku's leadership. Uchiha Fugaku was indeed very weak. Even though the Uchiha clan behind him was in high spirits, under the intimidation of Kaharu Udatane and Homura Mitokado, and Hiruzen Sarutobi's coercion of the overall situation of the village, Uchiha Fugaku chose to compromise under the disappointed and angry gazes of his clan members behind him. At this moment, the Anbu brought bad news to the three elders. Hokage-sama, elders, Tsunade-sama has left the village with her disciple Shizune. Too presumptuous. Is Tsunade trying to betray the village? Hiruzen Sarutobi was still relatively calm and asked. Do you know where Tsunade went? Not sure, but it can be confirmed that it is not in the direction of Iwagakure. Hiruzen Sarutobi breathed a sigh of relief. However, he also understood in his heart that Tsunade was probably completely disappointed in the village, but sitting in his position, many things were beyond his control, such as Orochimaru's change. Fortunately, Tsunade, who was already suffering from hemophobia, was unable to go to the battlefield at all, and her departure had little impact on the village. Don't worry about it, hide this matter for now. Understood. While the entire ninja world was in turmoil. At night, Rasa had already left the battlefield with two Anbu, crossed the Land of Fire, and arrived at the Land of Bears, which bordered the Land of Fire. Under the guidance of the Anbu, Rasa quickly found the location of the Hoshigakure of the Land of Bears. You guys wait for me here. Looking at the canyon shrouded in poisonous gas in front of him, Rasa directly issued a cold order. Understood, Kazekage-sama. Rasa waved his hand, and gold sand gathered under his feet, carrying him over the canyon filled with green poisonous gas. A small village with a star logo instantly came into view. At the same time, Rasa also sensed the location of his target. Star Hidden Village was one of the minor ninja villages that Roshi remembered from the world of Naruto. The reason for this was simply the meteorite that had fallen from the sky into Star Hidden Village. Legend has it that 200 years ago, before the establishment of the 5 great ninja villages, a meteorite fell from the sky and landed in the land of bears. A ninja with considerable strength discovered this meteorite and found that it possessed a very magical power. It emitted a very powerful chakra. As long as ninjas cultivated around this meteorite, absorbing the chakra into their bodies, they could greatly enhance their own chakra. The ninja used this to develop a set of ninja techniques called Peacock Mystical Arts. It could transform chakra into various materialized beasts to attack enemies. He used this to establish Star Hidden Village, becoming the first leader of Star Hidden Village, and even proclaimed himself the first Star Shadow. Why did Roshi choose this meteorite as his next target for absorbing open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket? It was because he remembered that during discussions about the plot, some netizens believed that this star might have come from the moon and was once part of the 10 Tails. Naturally, there was no conclusive evidence for this, and it was merely speculation by netizens. However, for Roshi now, in a situation where he couldn't easily acquire new power in a short period, trying this so-called extraterrestrial meteorite was the lowest cost option. Thinking of this, he looked down at the Star Hidden Village, which resembled a small village and seemed to have a total population of less than 1,000. He quickly locked onto his target, sensed whether there were any barriers around, and then descended from the sky. With Roshi's strength as a cage-level ninja, invading a small Star Hidden Village was an easy task. The Star Hidden Village's Anbu, who were patrolling around, were only Chunin level in strength and couldn't detect Roshi's presence at all. Soon, he entered a huge shrine. In the empty hall, on the altar, was a fist-sized purple stone emitting purple chakra. Roshi carefully examined it and found that this star was indeed protected by a barrier. However, this level of barrier was not a problem for Roshi at all, but he was not in a hurry to take the star away. Instead, he prepared to first feel the chakra emitted by this star to see what it was used for. Because he remembered very clearly that cultivating chakra through this star also had very obvious side effects. Soon, with Roshi's cage-level knowledge reserves, he quickly analyzed the true function of this star through sensing. He wasn't sure whether this star was part of the 10 Tails, but one thing he could already confirm was that the chakra of this star possessed a magical effect that could activate a ninja's body. What is activation? Simply put, it's like berserker frenzy in a game. You should know that the chakra used by ninjas is extracted from the ninja's body and spirit. This process is limited by the speed and intensity of cell division, as well as the size of the ninja's own spiritual power. But activation can stimulate and accelerate this process. The result is that ninjas can extract more chakra from their bodies, while both their bodies and spirits will be greatly enhanced, including improving physical defense, speed, recovery, and mental aspects such as reaction ability. It's like Chidori and the Cloud Hidden Village's lightning release chakra mode, which stimulate the body's activation through lightning attribute chakra to obtain incredible defense, speed, and power. However, the amount of chakra in a person's body is limited. This acceleration process is overdrafting the body's potential. For example, the number of cell divisions in a human body is limited. Activation will only accelerate aging. No wonder. This should be the side effect of the star. However, Roshi still planned to use open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket to absorb the chakra on this star. First, the side effects are a matter for the future. At least in the short term, this activation can make up for his shortcomings in close combat. Secondly, maybe open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket can eliminate the side effects of this activation. Finally, even if open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket can't, Roshi himself has an idea. That is, natural energy. That's right, it's the natural energy of Sage Mode. Because he seemed to remember that when Naruto was practicing Sage Mode on Mount Myoboku, Fukasaku said that Sage Mode can not only refresh and restore power because it can absorb external natural energy, but also will not burden the body and make the body tired. As for where to learn this Sage Mode, As the Kazekage of the sand-hidden village, it is naturally impossible for him to go to the three great holy lands. However, this does not mean that he has no way. That is Jugo. This existence can automatically absorb natural energy. Even without Jugo, there are tools like tailed beasts. He believes he can solve this side effect. Thinking of this, he didn't hesitate and formed hand seals. 5-seal barrier method. A square barrier appeared centered on Luo Sha and the star. This barrier can isolate the perception inside and outside the barrier. Then, he released the barrier below the star and pointed the open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket on his right hand directly at the star. Instantly, a huge suction force appeared, and the chakra on the star was directly absorbed by this suction force. About an hour later, the two Anbu guarding around Star Hidden Village discovered that Lord Kazekage had returned. Although they were a little curious that Lord Kazekage, who had clearly said he was going back to the village, chose to come to such a small ninja village, as Anbu, they wisely didn't speak. Forget what happened today. Understood. Okay, let's go back. The two Anbu followed Lord Kazekage back, but they found that the direction of return was not the village, but they still kept their mouths shut. For Luo Sha, he naturally didn't want these two Anbu to follow him, but since the third Kazekage disappeared for no reason, as the fourth Kazekage and the current controller of the village, it was very difficult for Luo Sha to act alone. It's not that it's impossible. It's just that it's best when the war is over. During this period, he doesn't dare to ignore the opinions of the ninjas in the village. As for the gains this time, how should I put it? Although it didn't give him as big a surprise as Shukaku's chakra, it still gave him some pleasant surprises. It's just that if you want to verify, you may have to wait. Now that the goal has been achieved, let's go back to the front line first. It takes him at least 2 days to go back and forth. The closer the 4-day deadline, the more unstable the front line. He urgently needs him, the general, to guard there. Luo Sha's idea was correct, because just as Luo Sha was going back, a white-haired boy was also rushing to the front line Konoha Ninja Village. It's just that the poor Star Shadow Village didn't realize that their village's star was gone until dawn. However, for Star Hidden Village, this may also be a good thing. Some future tragedies may be avoided. Monobe Castle. It is the city where the famous Fire Country clan, the Monobe clan, resides. As one of the 3 major cities within this plan, Maki came to this city personally to complete the task, in order to live up to Rasa's expectations. The Hidden Sand Village's plan is very simple. At night, they control the selected nobles in Monobe Castle, using ninjutsu to manipulate them. Maki naturally encountered some resistance. These nobles would raise some wandering ninjas, but they were no match for the Hidden Sand Village ninjas. During the day, they would find specialized merchant groups to transport their wealth openly. It is obviously impossible for the Hidden Sand Village's team of less than 100 people in one city to transport so many supplies. This is the wisest approach. Monobe itself is a large city with thriving commerce, and no one suspects what these merchants are transporting or where they are transporting it to. It can only be said that as the plan progressed, Maki became increasingly admiring of Rasa. Because only 3 days had passed, but the harvest from Monobe alone made Maki's eyes turn red. The silver taels obtained were enough to reach 700 million paper money, which already exceeded the annual funding from the Land of Wind's daimyo to the Hidden Sand Village. In addition, there were countless grains, cloths, salt, iron, sugar, medicines, silver, gold, and jewelry. It can be said that Maki felt that he would try his best to transport anything useful to the Hidden Sand Village. Maki was certain that after this operation, the Hidden Sand Village would not have to worry about military expenses for at least several decades. Now, his only concern is the frontline battlefield. Dash 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 dash. Land of Fire. The front line where the Hidden Sand Village and the Hidden Leaf Village confront each other. The vast plain has long been turned into a desert, with a huge pyramid standing there. Hidden Sand Village ninjas are constantly patrolling around. To avoid conflict, the Hidden Leaf ninjas could only watch from a distance for these 3 days. Although the hatred between the Hidden Leaf and Hidden Sand is not as direct as that with the Hidden Cloud, It is impossible for the relationship between the ninjas of the two countries to be too good, as they are two of the 5 major countries with constant conflicts throughout history. However, this time, the morale of the Hidden Leaf ninjas was slightly better, because a legendary ninja had arrived here. Under the golden sunset, Jiraiya, accompanied by Minato, arrived on the plane and saw the huge seal that sealed Gamaken. Minato said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Jiraiya-sensei, for keeping Ken-sama sealed here all the time." No. Jiraiya shook his head, his face also solemn as he looked at the seal in front of him. "You did the right thing. The current Hidden Leaf cannot afford to create a major enemy." On the way here, Jiraiya had already learned the relevant information, including some things in the village, especially Tsunade's choice to leave the village to relax, which made him feel exhausted. In recent years, he had felt that he and Orochimaru were drifting further and further apart, and now, even Tsunade. However, he couldn't show it, still acting like his usual unreliable self. "Let's go over there and rescue Gamaken first, otherwise Ziji-sama will be annoyed to death." As soon as the two approached, the Hidden Sand Village patrolling ninjas immediately became alert. However, after seeing Jiraiya's appearance, they were all filled with horror. There was no way around it, the legendary Sannin were too famous. "Quick, tell the Kazekage-sama, it's one of the Hidden Leaf's Sannin, Jiraiya." Jiraiya was very assertive, seemingly ignoring these Hidden Sand Village ninjas as he came to the front of the seal, studying it while saying, "What a strange seal, it can actually sever Gamaken's connection with Mount Myoboku." The Hidden Sand Village only had a few Chunin patrolling here, and they didn't dare to stop him at all. Minato also said, "Yes, I've never seen such a seal. There's nothing like it in the records Kushina gave me." "Is that so? Then there's no other way. Just in case." Saying this, Jiraiya directly responded, "Summoning technique." As soon as he finished speaking, a short toad wearing a gray trench coat appeared in their sight. Both of them greeted politely. "Fukasaku-sama." From the moment he was summoned and saw the huge sealing formula in front of him, Fukasaku understood the reason for being summoned. When he saw the incantations on the huge pyramid, he was even more shocked. "This is..." Seeing Fukasaku's surprised expression, both of them were a little curious, and Minato also asked with concern. "Fukasaku-sama, is Ken-sama alright?" "Don't worry." Fukasaku's expression became very serious. "Ken is fine. I can feel that he is alive and well. It's just this sealing formula. If I'm not mistaken, this is Shukaku's unique power." "Shukaku." Now Minato and Jiraiya both understood. Jiraiya said thoughtfully, "I see, it's actually the power of a tailed beast. I've long heard that the Hidden Sand Village's second Kazekage had a lot of research on Shukaku and developed a series of incredible techniques. Now it seems that it's true." Minato then asked with concern, "So, is there a way to rescue Ken-sama?" Fukasaku nodded, without the slightest hesitation, and without caring that this was a battlefield, he directly used the summoning technique. A scroll toad was summoned. "Gamatora, prepare the evil sealing method." "Oh, got it." As the scroll under the scroll toad was opened, Fukasaku directly formed hand seals, and surging sage art chakra surged, pressing it into the center of the scroll. Similarly, countless mysterious incantations flew out of the scroll, tearing the incantations on the pyramid one by one into the scroll like iron chains. Sage art. Evil sealing method. Stop. Seeing the Hidden Sand Village ninjas attacking from afar, Minato and Jiraiya naturally appeared in front of Yekora and Mikawa in an instant. "I'm sorry, Hidden Sand Village, this war has nothing to do with Ken-sama. It's a conflict between our Hidden Leaf and your Hidden Sand Village. Please let Ken-sama go back." Jiraiya looked at the two little guys in front of him, especially the young and beautiful Yekora, and said somewhat frivolously and forcefully. If Mikawa was still afraid of Jiraiya's fame, then Yekora's hot temper would not be able to bear it for a moment. What a joke. Instantly, 4 fireballs appeared, rotating around Yekora, merging into a huge fireball. Scorch release. Scorching hell. The huge fireball instantly attacked Gamamaru. Jiraiya and Minato didn't expect this woman to attack without saying a word. At the same time, they also felt the horror of this fireball. Even though the distance was still so far, they could already feel the burning pain on their skin from the high temperature. Water release. Water formation pillar technique. Jiraiya wanted to use water release to block it, but as soon as it approached the huge fireball, the waterfall-like water release was directly evaporated. Leave it to me, sensei. Summoning technique, triple Rashomon. 3 huge iron gates, like fierce demons, appeared. Boom. The huge fireball exploded, directly engulfing the Rashomon. The dazzling light was like a tailed beast ball exploding. All 3 huge iron gates were destroyed, but it was already too late. As the seal was released, the sand scattered, and Gameken's weak figure appeared in everyone's sight. Fukasaku was not interested in the war between human ninjas at all. I'm taking Ken back. After saying that, he disappeared in front of everyone in a puff of smoke. This made Yekora even more angry, her brows tightly knitted together, and 4 more fireballs appeared. Damn hidden leaf ninjas. At this time, Minato keenly noticed something and asked. Hidden Sand, is your Kazekage not here? Mi Chuan, who was hiding behind Ye Kang, frowned instantly. The reason he didn't attack together was because Rasa, the Kazekage, wasn't here, and it wasn't suitable to start a conflict. Mi Chuan didn't answer Minato's words directly, but instead asked back. What? Leaf Village ninjas, are you preparing to hand over Danzo to our Sand Village, or are you preparing to start a war directly? If that's the case, our Sand Village is ready to fight at any time. As soon as he finished speaking, figures of Sand Village ninjas appeared behind them. Although in terms of individual strength, these Sand Village ninjas couldn't compare with Jiraiya and Minato, the terrifying numbers still put a lot of pressure on Jiraiya and Minato. You must know that Jiraiya only came alone this time, without bringing any reinforcements. Leaf Village couldn't spare any reinforcements either. Ha ha ha. Jiraiya could only laugh awkwardly, holding out his hand to show that he had no intention of attacking. Don't misunderstand, everyone from Sand Village, we have no intention of starting a war with you. As for the issue of your 3rd Kazecage's disappearance, our village is investigating. Ye Kang didn't care about that. Leaf Village's actions of ignoring Sand Village and rescuing Gameken had already made Ye Kang feel a great sense of humiliation towards Sand Village, not to mention Jiraiya's lecherous appearance, which made her feel a sense of contempt. But just as she was about to attack, Mi Chuan came to her side, reached out to stop Ye Kang, and said in a deep voice. Remember, Leaf Village ninjas, you only have 1 day left. If there are no results by tomorrow morning. Humph. Watching Ye Kang and the Sand Village ninjas leave unwillingly, Minato and Jiraiya were both certain. It seemed that the 4th Kazekage of Sand Village was indeed not here. However, they were only relieved, and didn't dare to have any thoughts of actively attacking. Leaf Village couldn't withstand another war right now. Dash 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 dash. On the way back, Ye Kang roared at Mi Chuan somewhat irritably. Why didn't you attack? You actually allowed these Leaf Village ninjas to rescue that summoning beast. Mi Chuan said very calmly. Don't forget the Kazecage's instructions. Our current mission is to stall for time. War is not our ultimate goal. Ye Kang understood this principle, but still said somewhat unhappily. Kazekage, humph, when did you start becoming so obedient? Mi Chuan looked lonely. No matter what, whether we are willing to admit it or not, Rasa is already the village's cage. This is an unchangeable fact. Ye Kang felt something from Mi Chuan's lonely face. It seemed that Mi Chuan also had no hope that the 3rd Hokage was still alive. Although Ye Kang had a violent temper, she wasn't the type to not understand things, so she didn't continue to dwell on it and said. I don't know when Rasa will come back. Tomorrow is the deadline. But at this moment, an Anbu ninja appeared in front of them. Lord Mi Chuan, Lord Ye Kang, the Kazekage wants to see you. Dash 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 dash. Sand Village Ninjas encampment. Inside the tent representing the Kazekage. As soon as Mi Chuan and Ye Kang walked in, they saw Rasa sitting in the Kazecage's seat. Ye Kang asked very directly. When did you come back? Rasa didn't care about the rudeness in Yi Kang's words, or rather, he was already used to it. I just came back. I've already heard about what happened outside. You did a good job. This made Yi Kang say, somewhat puzzled. Why? Since you're back, why didn't you show yourself? Letting the Leaf Village ninjas break your seal like that and rescue that summoning beast. It's very simple. I think this is a good opportunity, which fits my next plan. Mi Chuan and Yi Kang were both shocked, not understanding what Rasa meant, but Rasa didn't explain it clearly, but suddenly asked a strange question. Yi Kang, Mi Chuan, do you trust me, this Kazekage? The sudden question made Yi Kang and Mi Chuan both stunned, and then inexplicably felt a little uneasy. Why would Rasa suddenly ask this question? Could it be that he was preparing to reveal his cards to the two of them and seize the power in their hands? The tent suddenly became quiet, and the atmosphere began to become heavy. After a while, Mi Chuan looked into Rasa's eyes and slowly said, regardless of whether I trust you or not, you are now the village's Kazekage. Having obtained the answer, Rasa's gaze turned to Yi Kang. Being stared at so directly by Rasa, Yi Kang bit her lip, and said somewhat unwillingly. I've said it before, at least in the position of Kazekage, I can't do what you're doing now. Rasa nodded. That's enough. Then, he slowly stretched out his hands and placed them in front of the two of them. Give me your hands. It had to be said that Rasa was indeed a little strange today. Mi Chuan and Yi Kang looked at each other, and Mi Chuan took the lead and placed his right hand on Rasa's left hand. Seeing this, Yi Kang hesitated for a while, and also stepped forward, placing her left hand on Rasa's right hand. Alright, next I will give you a kind of power, don't resist. As soon as he finished speaking, to the surprise of the two, a purple chakra flowed from Rasa's body towards the two through their arms that were touching each other. The two were both shocked. The two who subconsciously wanted to resist, remembered Rasa's words just now, and endured it. Then, as the purple chakra flowed into their bodies, both of them shrank their pupils. Because a surge of powerful chakra poured out from their bodies, forming a layer of chakra cloak visible to the naked eye around their bodies. This was the new power that Rasa had obtained by absorbing the meteorite from Star Village. Rasa called it Star Release Chakra Mode. But this was not the biggest surprise. Rasa then discovered that perhaps it was the characteristic of the star's own chakra that he could actually transmit the chakra absorbed from the star to others, allowing them to also master this power. Dash 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 dash. What is this? Inside the tent, Yi Kang and Mi Chuan felt the incredible chakra in their bodies, their faces full of shock. They felt that their chakra had increased at least 4 or 5 times at this moment, and at the same time, the various functions of their bodies had also been enhanced. Just as they were somewhat unbelievable, Rasa's voice rang in their ears. Don't be dazed, control the chakra in your body, and absorb them into your body. Logically speaking, this was impossible, because neither of them had the ability to absorb chakra, but when they tried to do so, they found that they really did it. The purple chakra was absorbed into their bodies, and at the same time, the surging chakra and the enhanced functions of their bodies also dissipated. At this moment, the two of them had endless doubts in their hearts, and looked at Rasa with shocked eyes, wanting to get an answer. Rasa didn't hide anything. If he were just an ordinary ninja from Sunagaku, he would naturally conceal this power. But now, he is the Kazekage of Sunagaku, and he will face Jiraiya and Minato, two enemies. He needs to strengthen the power of the ninjas in his village. I didn't return to the village. Instead, I went to a small ninja village in the land of bears called Hoshigaku. I heard that their ninja village possesses a unique power that can amplify a ninja's chakra. As you can see, I have taken this power. The two finally understood. They didn't think Rasa had done anything wrong. On the contrary, after feeling the surging power in their bodies, they felt that Rasa was a bit late in taking action. Now, they were curious about what this power was. I call this power Star Release Chakra Mode. Simply put, it is a power that can extremely activate the body's limits, like a stimulant. It can greatly enhance your chakra and physical functions. However, this is not without a price. The increase in power is at the cost of overdrafting your body's potential, because the human body has its limits. When you use the star release chakra mode, you are essentially squeezing the potential of your future body. Therefore, this power can only be used as a trump card. The two immediately understood. However, it was enough. As ninjas, they originally had no future, and they could die on the battlefield at any time. Therefore, compared to the powerful power they had just gained, they didn't care about overdrafting the future. At this time, Rasa took out a scroll. This is a scroll that I also obtained from Hokage. It is a unique secret technique developed by Hokage based on this chakra, called Peacock Method. Although it seems a bit rough to me, it may be useful to you. On the one hand, you can use the cultivation method on it to transform the chakra I passed onto you into your own power. On the other hand, you are both talented ninjas, and perhaps you can develop your own unique secret techniques through this peacock method. As Rasa spoke, he threw the scroll to Yekora. There is only one scroll. You can copy it yourselves after the war is over. Yekora opened the scroll and took a look, immediately immersing herself in it. With her talent, she immediately noticed some of the subtleties of this peacock method, and even had some inspiration. She raised her head in disbelief and looked at Rasa in confusion and asked, "Why are you giving us such power? The world of Naruto, in general, is still a very closed world. Self-preservation is the norm among ninjas and families. No family or ninja would easily pass on their secret techniques to others." But after Rasa possessed such power, he gave it to the two of them immediately, which made them both suspect whether there was something wrong with this chakra and secret technique. After listening, Rasa's gaze swept over the two of them, and he said in a low voice, "The reason is very simple, because I am the Kazekage of the village." At this moment, both Yekora and Mikawa were shocked, and then looked at Rasa in disbelief. Rasa didn't stop, and continued with a sigh. "For me, the interests of the village are the most important. But through this war, you should all be able to see that compared to Konoha, the foundation of our Sunagaku is still too shallow. Whether it is talents, secret techniques, bloodline limits, summoning beasts, or ninjutsu, Konoha still has the military strength to contain our Sunagaku even when facing the attacks of Kumogaku and Iwagaku. If it were the other way around, could our Sunagaku do it?" Yekora and Mikawa were a little unwilling. In fact, the ninjas here now account for 70% of Sunagaku's strength. But even with such strength, they still dare not easily start a conflict with Konoha when Rasa is not around. So, my idea is very simple. As the Kazekage, if I want to surpass Konoha, we cannot lack talents or ninjutsu. It is not enough for me to be strong alone. I am giving you the secret technique of Hokage, also hoping that you can use it to develop more secret techniques to make up for the shortcomings of our village. Of course, I will also help, but you also know that I don't have that much time." Hearing Rasa's heartfelt words, even if they had any other thoughts about Rasa in their hearts before, they only agreed with him at this moment. "I understand, I will give it a try." This time, Yekora was the first to stand up actively, and Mikawa also nodded immediately. "Very good, but let's talk about developing secret techniques after returning to the village. Now, there is still an important matter. You should familiarize yourselves with the power I just gave you as soon as possible, and then, get ready. Tonight, we will launch a general attack on Konoha." "General attack? Tonight? Aren't we waiting for Konoha's reply?" Both were very surprised. "No need to wait. There will be no reply at all. The Anbu just received news that Konoha's elder Danzo has gone to the battlefield with Iwagaku." "What?" Yekora bit her lip in resentment. Konoha simply didn't take their threat seriously. This feeling of being underestimated was too unpleasant. And in 2 days, our mission will be completed. Therefore, we need to create a posture of wanting to start a war with Konoha through the attack. While dragging out the last 2 days, it is also to prepare for our retreat. So, this time, our goal will be changed. Let the ninjas in the village not hold back. While protecting themselves, aim to kill as many Konoha ninjas as possible. The 3 of us, I will be responsible for Jiraiya, Yekora will be responsible for Minato, and Mikawa will be responsible for covering Yekora while leading the other village ninjas to attack the Konoha ninjas. This time, we must try our best to repel the Konoha ninjas in one fell swoop, so that we can safely withdraw from the land of fire in 2 days." Mikawa also understood immediately. "I see, Rasa, you didn't show up just now, was it to create the illusion that you weren't here, so that they would relax their vigilance? That's right. I understand. Yekora frowned slightly and said. That guy named Minato, I'm enough to handle him alone. Rasa shook his head, and looking at Yekora who wanted to say something, he said very forcefully. No. You have all seen the battle between me and that ninja named Minato. You are completely at a disadvantage when you fight him. His flying thunder god technique is the nemesis of close combat ninjas like you. His Rasengan is also not weaker than your Scorch release in terms of destructive power, but there is no way. I need Mikawa's large-scale destructive magnet release to quickly end the battle between Sunagakure and Konoha. Speaking of this, Rasa looked at the two of them with a very serious look and said. In the Sunagakure that I plan for the future, whether it is you, Mikawa, or all the Sunagakure ninjas here now are very important. Therefore, I don't want any accidents to happen to you. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.